how they decided to do it is create a software platform that bills tenants directly for the electricity that is produced. And so,
Right.
what Ivy does at its core is we create we have a software platform that creates, tracks, monitors the usage of each individual tenant, and then bills them directly. And the effect of that is that allows an asset owner to do is invest either their own capital into solar, or leverage third party financing partner to invest in it, and then recoup that cost over time through billing the tenant directly, effectively becoming their utility.
Right.
And that idea was, I think we're 7 years from like the inception of the idea, and I think 5 years kind of the inception of the company. And we just closed our Series A back in February. We raised $18 million, which was led by SolarEdge. And now we're expanding. So for the past 5 years, we've been really focused on the California market, obviously the best solar market in the country. So tons of opportunity here. But now we are expanding nationally. That's one of my roles here is helping us go into new markets. Some of the big
Yeah.
markets we're focused on right now are Colorado, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Illinois. Texas is another one we're looking at. But really anywhere that the economics make sense for solar and it's legal for us to operate, we can support asset owners to install solar on their property.
Got it. So I'm going to rewind back a little bit back to to this pain point, because as well, I don't know if as most people in the US know at this point, but as some people know in the US, we are now approximately 7 or 8% penetrated in solar for single family homes, or actually maybe even a bit more. I think we have about 5 million homes that have gone solar, 5 million single family homes of an inventory of about 60 million households, single family households. And and like your previous employer, Sunrun, has done 1 million of these 5 million installations, which is great,
As of this week.
and it is great that there's a player which controls 20% of the market there. But if we look at the remaining 45 million households, which are apartment buildings or condo units, or collective community housing type environments, most of these people have not put in solar for exactly the reason, the split incentive problem, which you described so eloquently a few minutes ago. And main reason being because there was no mechanism for the landlord to benefit from the solar, because the tenant's electric bill goes down, but there was no mechanism for the landlord to benefit from that. So most landlords, or some landlords, put solar to offset their common area electricity usage. Some did that, but the tenants' usage never really got offset. They never really benefited from it. They're still, buying most of their electricity from traditional sources. So there's really no solar benefiting that world. So let's dive into like, I remember, one of the reasons why I invested in Ivy and really in Dover is because actually Dover was at the time working for this other company, Complete Solar. I think it was like the origin story that I remember. He's selling residential solar early in his career, and he sees this apartment building, and it's not and it's like 10-unit little apartment building. Everybody's running their AC, but there's no way to put solar there. So that really pissed him off enough that he actually figured out all the policy issues associated with it, how to design a really smart software solution that solves this, and essentially leveraging the virtual net metering program that came out of the California PUC.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about like the inner workings of how this works, because when you are going solar with a single family home, it's simple. You put your solar, it produces electrons, you get credit for what you've produced at a certain net metering rule. So when you have an apartment building with 50 units or 100 units or 10, 20 units, how does that work? Then do you get credit for the whole parcel essentially, for producing? You put a large solar array on top of the building that offsets the building's entire, let's assume 80%, 90% of its load. And so the landlord gets credit for all of that from the eyes of the utility company, but then gets to charge what the tenants are using to the tenants for a lesser fee than they would have paid to the utility, right? That's how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And first off, I want to say appreciate you clarifying the
Yeah,
origin of Ivy. I don't like
yeah,
to always tell the over story for him, and he you know
yeah,
he
yeah.
he's
We'll
kind of
get him
shy.
on a future
He's kind of
solar
shy.
conversation here, and
Yeah,
we'll
he
have
was.
him
He's
share that
literally
story.
walking down, and he was like a aha moment for him. And
Yeah,
yeah, to elaborate on that, Dover had the idea of Ivy before there was policy in place that allowed Ivy to actually operate. So
yeah,
to kind of elaborate more on that is like a lot of our early work was really policy work. Him
yeah,
being heavily involved in influencing, what was legal, what could happen in the multifamily and multi-unit sector here in California. And we have a policy team today that continues to do that, and that's especially needed too in some of the new states that we're opening up because, um, as you mentioned, the million solar roofs at Sunrun hit the 20% market penetration. I think we're like 13% here in California. I think it's 3 to 4% nationally. And there are more advanced laws for single family homes, and this multifamily, it's all kind of new for everybody. So we do see a
yeah,
lot of that policy work continuing. But to answer your question, like, yeah, there's various stakeholders involved here, right? So the stakeholder number one to us is the asset owner, whoever owns that property, whether that's a large
yeah,
REIT, publicly traded company, or that's one owner that owns a 20 unit apartment complex or whatever that looks like. Is like that's our first stakeholder. And in order, the first thing we had to look at is why are they not investing in solar? And as I mentioned before, the reason for that is there was no billing mechanism to recoup the cost, right? And so
yeah,
the first thing we do is we really enable those asset owners to invest their own capital or leverage other capital. The billing mechanism allows them to do that. The tenants benefit by getting a discount off of the solar. So essentially, the way that it works, not now we won't offset 100%. Anybody who knows solar, like generally, you're not offsetting 100% of the usage. So
yeah,
the tenants are still going to get an electricity bill for a certain percentage, depending on roof space, all kinds of
yeah,
different factors dictates how much
yeah,
electricity we could offset. But let's just say it's 70%. And so the way
yeah,
that it would work is the tenant would get a bill from their asset owner, or really would say IV Energy. That would say $70, say it's a bill's $100 a month. They would get
yeah,
the $70 from the asset owner, and then the additional $30 would come from the utility.
yeah, yeah.
And the
And
one
the
caveat to that,
$70 that is coming from the asset owner slash Ivy's billing system is enabling that. That is a discounted value to what it would have been had it been
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
a
that's maybe the one thing I should
utility bill.
explain more. It's
Yeah,
like maybe it's more like if their bill was
yeah,
100, now it would be 60 with the asset owner and the 30 with the utility, saving them
yeah.
approximately
Makes sense.
10%.
Got it.
But it's a dynamic. The beautiful thing about the software that we built is it's actually tracking real time consumption, and so we incentivize the tenant to actually use more solar when solar is being produced. And so the more solar
Right,
you consume, the more you save. So it's not a
right.
totally even thing, but based on us wanting to adopt more solar, encourage people to have the right behavior, we believe that's the right
Yeah.
strategy.
And of course, there's a lot more sophistication to the software. It doesn't take the solar benefit and equally distributed across the 20 tenant units or 100 tenant units, or however many there are. It's also based on the tenant's usage time of the day and taking into account, whether they're using that power when solar is up, when sun is up, when solar is producing, and or not as well.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's dynamic. We're constantly doing this thing called BAL optimization, which is constantly looking back and figuring out how to distribute that electricity most efficiently. So the asset owner is actually getting the best return on their investment possible.